Tell us about you. Like, where'd you grow up? A little bit about you before you ended up here on the 40 acres.
Interesting story for a moment. I guess we all have an interesting story where we came from. But my father was in seminary, was going to become a priest. My mother was living in Mexico City. He went down there for an internship and met my mom. I think priesthood was out the window. Whatever happened there. But he decided to start a children's home in Mexico City. And midway through, they decided we should do this in the United States. So I grew up in a children's home in Taos, New Mexico, about 85 kids. It was an eclectic background. You had 0 to 6 in one house, 6 to 13, 13 to 18. We were just all lived together. And what was interesting about it, we had 5 or 6 hippie communes around that time. So they were the workforce, they were the house parents. So it was and we're 30 miles out of town. So it was an unbelievable, for me, childhood. You had ready-made friends. You didn't really know where they came from, how they came from. They were just all together. And you learned empathy. You learned just being around people of that nature and where they come from. It just had a profound effect on just my personal soul. But midway through that, mid-70s, we'd go to town and you're wearing hand-me-downs. You don't have the best clothes. You don't have all the things. And one of the kids went out for sport. And ultimately, he got popular. Someone from town called him and asked him to go on a play date. And we're like, we want some of that. And overnight, we just all joined sports. And really, it was a social experiment. My father didn't know anything about athletics. He just said, if you're going to play sport, you got to become socially acceptable. No matter where you come from, you have a chance to be accepted by people. And we would sit around the fireplace at night. He'd have these deep conversations about they're going to judge you let them judge you for who you are as a person, not your outcome of where you come from. And sport was our introduction to that. And by the kids where we grew up, we just all got infused in Taos high school athletics. And it was awesome. From there, I got a scholarship to go to Oregon State, track team, phenomenal experience. But my second year, they dropped track and field at Oregon State because of Title IX.
Oh.
First time I ever heard of it. So I ended up at UC Santa Barbara. Long and story the short, a house parent that used to work at the ranch left there, went to med school, became a team doctor at Washington State, and said, hey, when I was growing up, your father took care of me. And what do you want to do in life? I don't know, but sports has had an impact in my life. My father always said, I don't care what your profession is, but you will give back to humanity. So that was our only charge, is you had to serve society. And he had 3 rules. You be honest, you be humble, and you serve others. It was ingrained. So I wrote a paper to him about why I want to be in sport. Dr. Donati got me a job in the maintenance department in Washington State. And that's where my career started. I worked there 4 years in the maintenance department and just kind of worked my way up.
That's amazing.
How crazy is that, given how many of our assistant coaches also started at Washington State?
Oh, it's crazy. I used to take Johnny Nance in a class in a golf cart.
In the maintenance department?
In the maintenance department. Well, half the time, you only had like 9 people. You get done mowing here's a perfect example of maintenance department. So I get there, no one explains to me how to chalk a field. So I'm sitting there, and at that particular time, I'm in about 6:30 in the morning, sun is barely coming up, and hey, you got to go chalk the field. And I said, no problem. Where is it? Right there. Well, I saw 2 nails and a bunch of strings. I just threw that out, got the stuff, and it was like this powder, and you put it in this machine, and you just kind of go. Well, I just did it by eye. Cruise down. I finish about 8:15. I'm back in my chair, and here comes Kevin Sumlin. Who chalked the field? He's in the back. Raise my hand. Follow me. We go upstairs to the top, and there's Mike Price and the AD, and they're just going bonkers at the field. It is. I look down, and it's just a windy road. I'm like, Coach, it's practice. Who cares? Just put the ball where the line is. You're like, really? I go, no one showed me how to do it. They just said, go do it. So you can't blame me. But it was pretty funny. You had Kevin Sumlin, James Franklin.
I didn't realize James Franklin was there too.
Jeff Banks. We had Mitch. It was, for a while there was a cradle of young coaches who would come to Pullman 2 or 3 years and leave. So it's been really cool. Calvin Sampson, I talk regularly to. So it's been a really cool thing to see anyone that had a tour.
That's
It's like going to
wild.
Vietnam. It's going to the Palouse. Middle of nowhere. But what was cool about that is that you had all these coaches up top, then you had assistant coaches and GAs, and you'd get invited to a party at someone's house, you'd show up and there'd be everyone there. It was like a awesome environment just to be around great people.
I feel like UT may end up being an incubator like that, like 20 years from now. I mean, we have so many great sports programs going right now that it's, it'll be interesting to see 20 years from now where some of these assistants and GAs all end up.
For sure, right? You kind of look at it and say they come here. Part of the problem at UT, though, is you land here and like, I don't want to leave.
Yeah.
This is the Mecca, right? And we have assistant coaches that have been turned down head jobs. I'm like, you got to go. But they look at it and say, this is great. But for sure, like you look at our football staff or across all of our sports, the success they've had, if you're not at another school saying, I want what they're drinking, I should go hire them.
Yeah.
Right? Part of that, too, though, is if they've been here for a long time, they don't understand. Like I went from Washington State to a Division II school, Cal Poly, making 18 grand. I had $57,000 in student loan debt. And, Sally Mae, the loan lady, it took me 17 years to pay it off. But it was awesome. It was my debt. I paid it, no big deal. But you're at a Division II school, you have to do everything to make it relevant. Here, everything is given to you. So part of that is, do they really want to?
We understand that concept.
Yeah, we understand that
it,
concept. Like, hey, I'm not leaving your law firm, boys. Everything's really good. You have it greased up. I don't want to go on my own.
It's they're like, well, I don't do this.
Right.
And like, Jason and I used to answer our own phones.
Make our
we
own
were
copies.
Paralegal. We made our own copies. Like we had a 1,000 square foot office, and like the new lawyers come in, they get like the top salaries and everything they want.
Stay
they don't
in
have
any
to worry
hotel
about case
they want,
expenses. They don't have to worry about bringing in business. And so I get the concept.
Well, and just the concept. Well, think about where you two started out from, right? You went to school here. You guys are dear friends. You started a law firm, and it's just you two. You hire someone new. They walk into that palace that you have there, and they're like, "That's the floor."
Yeah.
They don't understand where you started from, and you can never tell them. You buy a house, you and your wife, you had that first house. It's always special. But the new house, if someone comes in, they just know that's where it's at. What's cool about you two is not only what you've done for the institution, let's just talk about the significance of young people your age supporting an institution doesn't happen. It's really unusual, guys. I'm telling you that. It's unusual to say, hey, we're in our 40s and we want to give back to an institution at a level that has raised the bar for everybody else. And that doesn't happen. And to recognize the two of you and your brides in our stadium for perpetuity is unbelievable. But to me, they've done it, you can do the same, right? It's the idea that these young people had nothing. They started on their own, they made something, and they've chosen to participate with us in this institution that you guys dearly love. And what I love about today is you got to be around so many of our student athletes that you're doing it for the right reasons, right? But to have a name in the stadium, and I know you guys, I don't know if I want that. We needed that because the next person that comes in is, for me, a beacon to say, you could be that. And for our student athletes, they can say, wait a minute, I want to do that, right? I want to be the next, Kurt Arnold, the next Jason Itkin. I want to be that person. So it's a really cool roadmap. And I can't thank you guys enough for that.
No, man,
that's unbelievable.
We're really
You
excited.
have no idea.
Thank you, Steve.
That's huge. It's going to be awesome.
So talk to us about what's it like. I mean, you're the athletic director of the University of Texas. We've got, how many sports do we have?
20. We just added beach volleyball, 21 now.
21 sports. So how do you oversee all the different sports and give them all the attention and love? I mean, the football program is obviously the most visible, but every sport here is important. So how do you give them all that?
Well, I think from the two of you, too, you also know, I'm reading a book. I do it every summer. I'm reading a book called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And it's really just about how you create synergy. You two have incredible synergy that permeates your office. When you have a pebble in your shoe, it can cause a problem, right? When I got hired here in 2017, December, I had the privilege of just spending 6 months just listening to people before I took over. And I owe Mike Parent a great debt of gratitude because he said I'll stick on for that time. And I really just wanted time But during that period of time from DeLoss Dodds to me, we've had 3 ADs, 4 football coaches, 3 different chancellors, and 3 different presidents. That is not synergy. And when leadership is not aligned, it's really a struggle. So I remember I took our head coaches to that first retreat, and Eddie Reese stands up and says, "What are you going to do to fix this?" And I looked at him and I said, "What do you mean, sir?" He goes, "We lost our heart in Rick Barnes. We lost our soul in Mac Brown, and we lost our mind in Augie Garrido. They were all let go. What makes you from TCU that you can fix this?" A swim coach that, by the way, had been to the White House ever since Jimmy Carter. And I'm like, we just said, okay, I have to then prove to them that we have a plan. And it really started with synergy. How do we put everyone back rowing the same boat? And that's the hard part of this job. Darryl Royal used to say, when the BBs are out of the box, it's hard to put them back in because it's one at a time. So I really just focused the majority of my time on, here's the plan, here's how we're going to go about it. And every one of our sports has either competed for or won a national championship in the last 5 years, or been right there, right? And part of it was every one of them are driven to be the very best. So you give them the tools necessary to be successful. We put guardrails. Here's our expectations.
Right.
We hold them to those expectations, but we support them to those expectations. And if not, then change comes. But I don't want to be quick to change for change's sake. You got to be quick to say, okay, if we made a mistake, let's own it and atone for it immediately, and then get back to work. And don't let it drag out. And I think we started rolling a little bit, then COVID hit. Then we went through civil unrest. And those things were really difficult because we had to make massive decisions, furlough people, salary reduction, try to contain ourselves to make sure that we can live to fight another day. Those are hard questions to have when everyone just said, we're Texas. You have plenty of money, you should be able to do this. No, we don't. We have to be smart with the dollars you give us. We're your steward of your passion. So once we realize that we have incredible coaches, give them the tools necessary to be successful, and just breathe life into them, good things will happen.
How did you, and Kurt and I have been fortunate in large part because of you, that we've gotten to meet some of the coaches in the different sports, women's basketball, swimming. You can go on and on the list, and it seems to me that they're all great leaders, great teachers. They care about the student athletes. What do you look for when you're trying to find a coach for a sport?
Well, I think you better look for fit. I think fit is critical, and Texas isn't for everybody. Your law firm isn't for everybody. They know when they come work for you, they know your intensity. When they come forward with you, they know your passion. It's not for everybody. Texas isn't for everybody. And you have to realize that. We have a saying, the winning traditions of the University of Texas shall not be entrusted to the timid nor the weak. Because you come here, you're already hated. You're already, oh, he's at Texas. That's already there. So you can have a great coach from a small school, and they come here, or they've been here or there. We think they have great pedigree. They're just not ready for what it means to be a Longhorn. So I spend a lot of time on that.
Seeing if they can handle the bright lights.
Handle the bright lights. I interviewed a football coach one time, and he goes, I want no part of your job. I won 8 games. You just let go of a coach that had 8 games. I am a hero here. That's barely tolerated there. I love that coach. I left there, and I think the comment was made to me, I'm the Cleveland Indians. I want no part of the New York Yankees. I loved him for him acknowledging it and saying it. So I really focus on like things that my father said. Are they honest? Are they humble? And will they serve the community? So I start with that. And then you can deep dive and say, is he really a good person? Are they about the student athlete? Are they about treating people great? Are they about understanding their environment? That's, because you can go on and say, that guy's won all those games, and they're a horrible fit here. And then once we boil that down, then we go back to, okay, can they fit at Texas? And if you notice when we do coaching searches here, I don't let moss grow between our toes. Because if you have an open search here that lasts for weeks, everyone gets a raise. So if you're going to make a change, be definite, have a wish list you can get. Here's a coach, I love him. If I can get him, be awesome. Then have definitely one you can get, because you never want to go to the old poop list.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I really narrow focus, but I do a lot of research before we get
But you
there.
do
Did
it.
that happen with the baseball team?
Really? We're not even 10 minutes in and you're just throwing out a fastball, right? A little heater. But it did. And I think with Jim for a moment, I knew who he was.
Yeah.
I think back to popular belief, that was already baked. It was not. I was like, okay, if we make a change, this is what we'll do. But Jim was, if we can get him, he's the lovely person, I will love him. But if not, I know I have 2 coaches that will come.
So how big's the list typically? 3, 5, 10?
When I was my first AD at Rice at 36, I think I had a list like 50 people. Look at any of these 50 would be awesome. When I got to TC, it was a little bit more narrower. Here, it's really narrow. I mean, it might be 3, and you can see in previous searches in the past, if you get too far down, it becomes a media story. I don't need the media talking about who turned down Texas. And, we're covered by so many people that you try to, if you're going to make that change, you better be resolute and have who you want to target immediately. And when we interviewed Coach Beard, I thought, okay, if Coach Beard says yes or no, great. But if not, I know where I was going. I had the second guy ready. And he said, I'll take that. So I'm going to try to be really condensed in time. But it's really narrow. Depends on where you're at, though. There's a Rice. Anyone want the job? Come on, boys. Let's go.
Hey, when we started our firm, it was, you got a case?
Yeah,
We got it. We'll take it.
We'll take. You know how that works,
Now,
right?
yeah,
When
now
you
we're-
think about where you've risen in your law firm, I think the correlation between the 2 of us are critical. Where you've risen in your law firm, you have the very best vying to be with you. Your success is undeniable, but how you treat your employees, how you bonus your employees is critical. How they feel about you is incredible. And the most important thing, I've been to your firm and I've met lawyers that work for you after the fact, how they talk about you is awesome. That tells me you have incredible culture. That tells me, like, okay, you have a guy that just was working you down, he lives in Austin, and he's just profuse about working for you all and what you've done and how you built your firm. Loyalty to the absent is difficult in today's society. It's difficult because everyone wants to beat their own chest. When they're loyal to the absent when you're not there, it just tells you built something. So when you're hiring lawyers, I could imagine there must be Baker Bach, or whatever, all these big old firms back today go, if we can get with Arnold Itkin, that's where we're going. Yeah. That speaks huge volumes.
Thanks. We've tried really hard. I mean, and it
should.
To us at the firm, it's so important, just like I think it is for y'all at UT with coaches and really every position, to have everybody that is really bought into what we're trying to do. I mean, and here, obviously trying to win games, represent the university, represent the state. For us, we're helping people who had something terrible happen to them. And so it's not about ego. It's not about any of those things. It's about what are we doing to help this person's life get better. And if we have people that are bought into that and bought into making sure they understand the stakes are so high that family we're helping can't afford to lose. And so it makes the extra hours that you put in, it makes all the things worth it when you know that you're fighting for something that's important and lasting.
Well, for sure. It's very similar to what you look like a student athlete, right? You recruit a student athlete, and a coach is the thing about a coach. They believe in someone when someone doesn't believe in themselves. And a victim, you believe in their case when they're hopeless. Your staff and your lawyers that work with you, they're all committed. I walk down your hallway, it's boxes and boxes like it was. They're all team jointed working on a case. No different than Steve and 9 coaches working to say that kid is here, can become this. And it's a coach's job to not only breathe life into that kid, but to believe in him when he has self-doubt. And you've created this team environment at your law firm that you can see by success permeates everybody. And no different than a coach, right? And Steve's the orchestrator of that. And you met with some of our coaches today. They're all eclectic. I bet you had a great time interviewing. Our kids are awesome, but they all have a unified goal. It's awesome.
You know what's crazy to me is when I think of strength and conditioning, I think of weights and running. And now that I've met with Torrey Beckton, I think it's more mental than physical. That he's motivating, and he's a coach. He's a dad. He's like a big brother. He's a teammate. All that stuff. And I just had never really thought about it, right? I think about nutrition, I think about, doing squats and stuff like that. But he's the one in charge of the kids for most of the time.
Most of the time. And today, it's like this, when it gets really, really hard, it's easy to say no. It's easy to say, hey, no. Tory worked so hard on the breakthrough that there's that aha moments that all of a sudden they go, wait a minute, I just did something, an impossible task they didn't see possible. But it all played. When I played, it was you lifted weights, you ran, and that was all. Now it's this holistic approach to how to, during a game, the fourth quarter, ultimately the last 3 minutes, are you tough enough? Are you strong enough? Do you believe in yourself enough to make that extra push? And in a game like Houston last year, we were all sitting there and made a nervous wreck. But you can saw it, a game like TCU, games where you're like, man, these things can go either way. I think one of the things you saw our kids said 2 or 3 years ago, we'd have lost those games.
For sure.
We were not physically and mentally sharp for the moment, right? You deal with pressure situations all the time, but in that moment, you know how to deal with it. But young people will fluctuate, and that's a success. That's the key to Tory.
It was cool listening to him talk about how we're always at our weakest when you're most tired. Like that's
Right.
the easiest time to give up or quit, and how the 4 p.m. summer runs or working out in the sandbox and doing all the things when people are more tired gives these guys more strength and resolve when it's, when the chips are down in the fourth quarter. And you can hear that from the players. It's what's cool. I think one of the coolest things to me, I think, of the organization that you've built is that from you to Coach Sarkisian to all the assistant coaches to the players, you ask them questions and it's all similar answers. It's all, said in your own way, but it's about culture. It's about hard work. It's about giving back. I mean, so many of the players were talking about how they've got a cause or a charity or something that they're doing in their own community to give back. And it's really impressive to see the leadership from the top and how that just permeates all throughout the program.
You could be Colin Simmons talking about his autistic brother and he wants to start a foundation, or CJ Baxter, teaching kids in camp how to play football,
Well, and that really, I'll say Steve has a lot of credit to that. I think Steve within our own building too, who he is has permeated all of our coaching staff, because he talks about Culture Wednesdays. And Culture Wednesdays is being vulnerable to who you are, who your story is. When they know who you are, the person next to you will fight harder for you. When they know your vulnerabilities, they will do everything they can to help you. And football players I'm a man, manly man, I suppress that. And he's very vulnerable about his story. And he has them go around the room and talk about who's the most reliable. And a quick story, 2 years ago, Sweat he was the last person picked on Culture Wednesday. Devastated him. Yet, he took that to heart, and the following year was named team captain, the most reliable, and a first or second pick in the second round, and Lombardi Trophy winner. There lies the impact of Steve, was that particular kid that was struggling with accountability, struggling with all those things, and no different than you guys in your firm at night, and you're working and grinding, and someone finally has a breakthrough. That morning they're in your office, hey, it's an aha, you know what I mean? And that, for him in Culture Wednesdays, a player will tolerate and live and breathe what you say when you know you care for them. If you're just MFing them, they have no chance, because they tune it out. But if they know you're trying to get something out of them, Tory is hard on those kids. Steve is really hard on those kids. Yet Steve will hug them, love them, they'll be in his office. Tory will be in they're around all the time. But that went to Vic Schaefer. We call him Uncle Vic. Uncle Vic is, awesome, but he's an old school coach. You're like, Vic, I don't know if that works today. He goes, it works. My girls know I love them. Jared Elliott. They all go about it differently, but their bottom line is the exact same. It's really, I do exit interviews every single kid that leaves here. I meet with every recruit that comes in. It's mandatory. I want to know who we're recruiting against and the type of kid we're bringing with their families. And exit interviews are I ask them, is everything Texas that you thought of when you signed? And they always say it's more. And let me tell you what happened to me.